Hey, what's going on, Thrive Hive? It is Chris and Hannah, and we are coming to you from Constanza, Dominican Republic, where we are just here with the family, overlooking this amazing view. This is just an amazing place. But today, as we've been sitting here kind of in this tranquil environment and talking about what we have on our schedule in the near future, obviously, you may or may have not seen, but we are leading a group of amazing people down into the Amazon jungle to do a week-long ayahuasca immersion. And what we thought would be fun today is to just kind of share our story a little bit.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Oh, so fun.
And this is
Not fun.
not fun, right?
Necessary,
So
but not fun.
Well, right. And so one of the things that we just did a prayer, just asking us to be able to stay open and vulnerable and authentic, because this is a tricky thing for us. We went through quite a, what was the word? An awakening?
Uh-huh.
A midlife awakening. Not a crisis, not a anything else, but an awakening.
Well,
and
it could have been a crisis.
It could have been.
We had handled it
kind of felt like a crisis in the
It
moment.
was a crisis, but we handled it in such a way that we leaned into growth through it and to becoming the next best version of ourselves that we could be through that crisis,
For sure.
which led to an initiation into the next version of ourselves that we got to be.
Yeah.
So
I love that. So really our goal in this is to kind of share a little bit of our story, because we haven't done so in a big public way yet, and this is going to be our episode where we share
We're sharing that part of the story?
Our story. We're going to do that, and then our hope is that it serves you, it connects with you. We're going to dive deep into how we've grown with each other, how plant medicine has helped our marriage, how plant medicine has helped me and my business, how plant medicine has helped Hannah grow in her ways, and I think it's going to be fun. So, I mean, fun is a relative word, but you know, it'll be interesting if nothing
Fun
else.
like the scariest roller coaster that you've ever been on.
Exactly.
And when you just drop from the top and you don't know if it's going to catch you at the bottom.
Totally.
Kind of that style of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we're good.
Yeah.
We're good.
It's awesome. It ends well.
More like a bungee jump.
You know the end of the story. It is like a bungee jump.
We're here,
but you
so
know
it
the end
works.
of the story. If we're sitting here like this, doing what we're doing, obviously, you jumped.
Well, and I think one of the things for me, one of the things that makes me really want to do this type of video is because I have a lot of men that come up to me that question, how did I get through it? How did I forgive? How did my ego handle certain elements? How have I been able to grow through it? And how, at this point in time, only 2 years removed from the most recent awakening crisis,
the episode of 2023.
How are we in such a great space at this point in time?
Yeah, and this won't be the episode where we really deep dive into that issue.
Sure,
in particular.
totally.
Like that could
Right.
be its own separate episode. There's
Yeah.
a lot of juice to squeeze there, and a lot of lessons that we've learned individually for sure that we can each get into if y'all would like to hear that stuff. And then
just let us know in the comments if you want to hear about that.
yeah, and then together as a couple. So that is at least one episode. That could be a whole freaking playlist on the lessons that we've learned.
Totally.
But should we tell them like what are we talking about?
Yeah, do it.
Do I have to?
Yeah. This is your story, so I mean, in a way, I'll hop in.
So let's see. Going back and setting the stage, 2021. Let's go to the good stuff first.
Yeah,
In
let's go.
2021, I achieved a lifelong goal of mine since I was 16 years old of winning a national pageant title. Many of you guys have seen, if you see in my profile, that I was Mrs. American 2021. And then I went on to have the beautiful, incredible opportunity to spend a year sharing my story about recovery from alcoholism and addictive illness with as many people as would listen. And my objective in that is to use the mess that I experienced, the pain, the trauma, the damage, the wreckage to myself, and the wreckage to Chris and to everyone around me, as a point to show other people that addiction can happen to anyone. For one, I came from a middle-class background with a loving family and a good education, and I didn't have any real outward trauma, like capital T trauma, that people would look at and say, oh, that person is prone to addictive illness, to a life of that. I was looked at as a high achiever. I was looked at someone who had great expectations to achieve a lot of great big things in the world, and yet I was taken down by alcoholism and eating disorders and validation seeking from men, which look like, they label it as love and sex addiction. And so all of that came to a culmination about 2009, and we ended up breaking up for a minute. We had a separation. We separated for a bit. I got myself into 3 12-step recovery programs simultaneously, and I realized at that point, I had this. I just looked at the results that I had in my life, and I tried to look at them from the business lens and say, well, if you were the CEO of your life, how are the results? And yes, I had the car with 3 letters, and yes, I had a house and a dog and a husband, and I had, at that point, was I in the office overlooking the lake?
No, you had just left that.
I had just left that. And so anyway, but on the outside, everything looked glossy and perfect. Like I had nailed it and I was killing it at life. I was 28 years old. And from the outside, it all looked great. But I internally was such a perfectionist and I was hating myself. And the spiral out of control of validation seeking and then numbing myself out with booze and other substances so that I could step out of myself. It allowed me to be a lubricant to act out in ways that I wouldn't act out normally. And so anyway, when all of that came to a head in 2009, I was given the gift of desperation, we call it in recovery, where everything collapsed. And I lost my husband, who had to give himself some healthy space from me and my self-destruction. I lost my job, I lost my car, I lost my dog. I was like a country song, play backwards, I lost everything. And the beauty and the gift in that was that I then began to rebuild myself from the bottom up. I realized I fired myself as a CEO, I chose a higher power, and I found these groups of people who had what I wanted in life, which was contentment. And I would sit in these groups and look around, and nobody wants to be in a 12-step meeting. Let's be honest. It's the largest organization in the world that nobody ever wanted to be a part of. But then once we're there, it's the greatest gift that we could ever be given. And I looked around, and these people of just all different walks of life and ages and educations, and those that had really been in the program for a minute and had been doing the work of the program, they had just this contentment in their eyes. And I desperately wanted that. And I was the person who nothing was ever enough. No matter what I achieved, I was an academic high achiever. I was a 3-season athlete, junior Olympic level athlete. I had these high goals in every aspect of my life. And I never, no matter how many I hit, I never felt good enough. And I looked around the room and there was just peace. And I was like, fuck, I want that. What do I need to do to get that? And so I turned my life over to be one of service and to be one of a little less of me and a little more of what I could contribute. And in that, I was given the gift of the desire to drink alcohol went away. The desire to act out with validation seeking from guys, it went away. I no longer was going to bars. I wasn't flirting with people. I learned how to contain my energy and to keep that in a really tight sort of safe space for me. And there was a lot of cool stuff that happened along the way. Eventually then sharing my recovery story at a couple years sober brought me into the space of pageantry again years later, when I got to be Mrs. Arizona American and then Mrs. American and share that story on a national stage and share with people through a place of vulnerability. I've learned that vulnerability is my superpower. And so it seemed, I was running a real estate business in Arizona. I loved that I could serve people in that way. I love real estate investment. I love helping people to achieve their best lives through creating financial independence through real estate. That really fired me up. But after the pageant and the year was over, the Mrs. World experience was over, I didn't have a stage. I didn't have a platform. And it wasn't about me. It was about being of greater service. It was about showing up in the world in a meaningful way beyond just raising my 3 kids, beyond just like picking Cheerios out of the
If I could, you just like,
out
you
of the
lost
cushions.
your purpose.
And I lost my purpose.
Right, that was it. You just kind of were a ship in the night without a compass.
Yeah, and I
Right?
had people,
Yeah.
really, really well-meaning spiritual people, be like, Hannah, you've always been a doer. Like, you are a human being. Like, you're a human doing, like doer. You just do, achieve. This is your opportunity to practice being a human being rather than a human doing.
I remember that.
And I was like, okay, I'll try that. That sounds fun. And so I sat and tried to, I would do the kids in the morning and the kids in the afternoon, and I was driving them a ton and really immerse myself to like be a good mom. And then during the day, I was trying to do yoga and work out and then meditate and do these spiritual practices and do guided visualizations all day long. So I was just sitting at home, like trying to be a monk all day long. And I thought that that was what a human being was supposed to be instead of doing. And eventually for me, that works for some people, but for me, I lost my greater sense of contribution. And so I started to just slip into this depression. At the same time, because I had had this goal of achieving this pageant title for so long, and it was such an identity of mine because it came from the place of a dare. It came from a place of being told that I was ugly and that I could never do anything like that. I could never show up in a way like that. When I was 16 years old, it became a challenge to prove them wrong, right? And so after all that time, when you're so hell-bent on proving someone wrong and saying, no, I'm going to show you and I'm going to achieve this for myself, and that becomes my identity as that person who contributes in that way. When that microphone was removed, which is you hand it on to the next person, I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't do the work in advance to prepare myself for who was I going to be next. And so I kind of found myself in this depression. And maybe I'm going the roundabout way because I don't want to actually talk about what happened next. But
That's okay.
and I'm not in like shame over it because I wasn't actively looking for this. Like, I know that my motives were pure. And I was introduced by Chris to a person who is a doctor healer. And it was to continue healing my brain from the traumatic brain injury that I still have post-concussive symptoms from years and years and years later. And he found this really amazing healing modality that had helped heal his shoulder. And he was like, Hannah, this could help heal your brain. I'm going to take you to this clinic. And when I went to the clinic, I was treated by someone who, in the end, I developed friendship with, and then caught feelings for the person that was my doctor healer. There it is. I said it. Gulp. So at that point, it was what? 13 years of sobriety?
14.
14 years of sobriety,
Yep.
Emotionally, alcohol, drugs, physically, spiritually, sexually, in all the ways. I had been so faithful and so sober in that amount of time. All of a sudden, I was really attracted and drawn to this other person. And it was really challenging because it lit me up in ways that I hadn't felt in a long time. And I didn't know what to do with that. And so we had to then navigate. Like, I didn't want to be unfaithful to my husband, who's sitting in this red Adirondack chair. And yet I wanted to be faithful to myself. I wanted to feel a rush again. I wanted to enjoy that like physical aliveness and electricity that I hadn't felt in a long time. And we had been together, 20 years at that point in time.
Yep.
And I had been completely romantically faithful for 14 of those years. And it was devastating. It was really, really, really difficult. It became like a fantasy addiction of, yes, this person was awesome, but it also was like, I'm addicted to a fantasy of other. And there was escapism, I'm sure, involved in it. There was repressed sexuality that was involved in it. And it just was this messy space. And I wanted to make good decisions. And yet I felt like I was on a high. Like I stopped eating. I lost a lot of weight. I wasn't sleeping. I was on a complete brain chemical
Dopamine rush.
and all of the happy chemicals and the serotonin and the oxytocin and all the happy stuff was happening. And even though I wasn't sleeping with the guy, I was like emotionally connected, and it was a thing. It was a thing. And so I came eventually, Chris and I eventually had a conversation, and he kind of called me out on it. It was like, what is happening? I'm seeing the changes in you. I started to dress up again. I started to like wear my favorite clothes, and I was the best of Hannah. Like instead of yoga pants and no makeup and just throw my hair in a sloppy bun and no lashes, I started to be in like my favorite Freebird boots and my cool shredded denim. And like I came back to being me again. And he was hurt by that because he's like, oh, you don't laugh with me, but I pop into the clinic and I see you laughing with him and with the whole staff, and like you're alive when you're with them and you're not alive at home. And I couldn't deny it. I couldn't deny that because that was just the truth of what was happening. So we needed to start to navigate, like, what is this going to look like? I didn't want to cheat, and I already was sort of cheating emotionally. And so I will say again, I'm sorry for that. But I also wanted to see what it might look like to maybe have an open marriage, to maybe see what would happen if I were to be able to explore this other path and have you. And have what we've built over 20 years. So we started to have these conversations. There, I freaking said it. I can't believe that I just had to tell that entire graphically detailed story. I'm shaking right now. I didn't want to do that today.
So at that point in time, it was challenging. I mean, there's no way around it. She was going through these transitions. She was battling the desire to be faithful, and then all these other emotions and feelings and whatever that she was navigating. It was a combination of obviously developing feelings for this other guy, but it was also, I feel like, you know, when we talk about what was the midlife awakening. It was a midlife awakening, you know, not a crisis, because it was this process and this experience that had her start to realize, like, oh, there's this part of me that has kind of been held back and held down or stuffed down or put in a capsule, if you will. And I think, you know, to kind of step up to your defense, you know, for 14 years, she was, you know, emotionally and everything faithful and so dedicated. And then this kind of situation happened. It caught her by surprise, definitely caught me by surprise. But I think it's a tough balance because she was navigating for 14 years sobriety. She was navigating reliving in a monogamous, faithful kind of relationship and like relearning what that looked like. And she did a great job with it. But at the same time, I feel like the part that you didn't say is to protect yourself, you kind of had to put yourself in an energetic bubble. And I think what happened was that bubble got pierced a little bit, right? And it kind of exploded. And then you were like, just kind of like if a car is buried in water and then the windows get smashed in, the water just goes poof, and it just, you're crushed, right?
I was thinking, was that a Jack in the Box, right? You know, that you spin
pop,
and it's all coiled up inside and it's
totally,
pushed down and then boom, and the clown that fucking destroys your life pops out of the box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that just happened, right? And so I remember.
Thank you for coming to my defense.
What I can say about my angle, I'll just share my part of the story at that point in time. It probably will be helpful. Is like I remember when she came to me and started telling me about, you know, wanting to open up our marriage potentially and exploring it. And I just remember being surprised. I remember being hurt, and I remember just not wanting to get angry about it and wanting to work it backwards and try to keep my ego out of it. That was the hardest part, right? Because when you're a man and, you know, your wife is telling you that, you know, she's got all this love and she thinks there's open for more and, you know, all this stuff, it just, for me, I could say for me, it made me feel less than, I guess is the word, or like I wasn't able to fulfill a portion. And, looking back at it, I realize that that's, just kind of not fully thought through. And there's so much more to it than that. But when she went there, and I was just like, okay, let's walk it through. And so we kind of walked through all the scenario and what it would look like if we did open the relationship up, the good, the bad, the ugly, of what that could be like. And, that's not even, I don't think, even the most important part of the story. I think the most important part of the story is that we're both human beings, right? And like she went through her process of this awakening, and I think it's really normal. And I think this is the power of us sharing this story and why we both feel called to be vulnerable.
Yeah, remind me why we're sharing the story again, please.
Well, this is it.
Because my heart feels like my ribcage is fucking wide open right now, and my guts are spilling out to you guys. And I don't remember in this moment exactly why this is worth it.
Yeah, I think this will
Please
help.
remind me.
You got it, baby.
Okay.
So this is not an uncommon thing where people hit a midlife crisis. And I think if we were to title this video, it would be "Turn Your Midlife Crisis into a Midlife Awakening," because that's really what it was. And it didn't just happen by accident. I think the thing that Hannah and I have always had that has helped us is that we have a shared vision, and we want kind of virtually the same thing in life. We're kind of shooting for the same destination, and it's hard to have a partner that you feel so in alignment with. And I think
it's hard to have a partner you feel
I think it's hard to find somebody.
I think it's hard to have.
Oh, I think it's hard to find somebody. Hard to find somebody.
Okay.
And so I think we both have always felt like really blessed to have that in each other, even when everything isn't always so great, and you go through these struggles. And I think that's this message, is to say, hey, turn your midlife crisis into a midlife awakening. Her crisis was much more surface level, meaning more public. It was super deep internally, obviously, but it was an external facing thing, right?
Although I hid it from my friends.
You hid it from your friends. You hid it from everybody.
I didn't even share with my friends what was happening because I didn't want them to tell me no. I didn't want them to tell me to stop. I didn't want them to tell me not to.
Yep.
And I wanted to allow myself the gift of just because, these 20 years together have looked like this, well, what if the next 20 years are supposed to look different? What if my destiny is that I'm supposed to be pursuing passionate love instead of commitment and responsibility and obligation and expectation and this normal day-to-day grind that is what my life felt like? And I know you hate to even hear that probably is what it felt like.
I was very aware.
But we had both fallen into this rut at the time, and on the outside we finally had achieved everything on our checklist over 20 years. Like, we had the big house on the golf course, we had the nice cars in the driveway, we had
all the toys.
3 healthy kids that were all in 3 different schools. Like, my real estate business was going great, your Life 180 business was going great, and it was like, and we had family nearby. Everything that we'd ever thought that we had wanted, we finally were like, check, check, check. The financial instability was finally gone. And yet, I think we were both afraid to share with each other that we were a little bored, that we were like, now what? And we were both in this phase of, now what? Is this all there is? And, when we surround ourselves in that kind of American-ish culture, and I know in Europe and Australia there's similar vibes, and probably around the world, you're supposed to be really happy and feel fulfilled when you check all those boxes. Like when you don't have to worry about your finances this month and paying the bills, and when you can go on vacations, and when you have this life that you think that is everything that you've ever wanted. You're supposed to be really happy, and you're afraid to then share with, we were afraid to share with each other. We've realized only after the fact that we were afraid to share with each other that we weren't fully deeply satisfied, even after we'd finally gotten all of the stuff and created the life that we'd worked for 20 years to achieve. And we were bored, and we didn't know what else it could look like, so we didn't talk about it. And
we didn't know what to talk about.
We didn't even know what to talk about.
And I think that just comes down to
it's like an unnamed dissatisfaction.
Right.
And it obviously came about in a way that felt explosive, It was really painful for me in a lot of ways, and it was really painful for Chris in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But the one thing that we did decide is we decided to talk about it with respect,
Yep.
without name calling, without shaming, without judging, without blaming. We just said, hey, here's where we each are, here's our feelings. And the way that you and I both discuss hard topics has been reflected as actually really an admirable thing, that we do it with such deep respect for one another, even if we disagree about something. But there was that, and then we both decided that we wanted to grow through it. And you mentioned that we have been aligned from the beginning with vision. The other thing that we have committed is that we're all about growth and expansion and personal development and personal growth. And so whatever it is that we're going through, whether it be my dad's cancer journey or losing businesses and having failures in that way, or parenting challenges, or whatever the crisis has been.
Sure.
We always just say, how can we grow through this instead of just going through it? And this crisis was no different.
And in the moment, I'll tell you, like, if you're watching this, like, I get a lot of people that, especially men, that make comments to me about, like, oh, Chris, you can never understand, or like, I'm going through this stuff or whatever. I'm like, trust me, like, there's not much I can imagine you're going through that I haven't been through that, or maybe even harder. And not that it's a competition or anything, but it's just a matter of, no matter what happens, and I can go back to this situation in 2023, it did not feel like I was growing through anything in the moment.
No.
Okay? It felt like I was getting gut punched every single day. And it took a lot of hard work and really deep intentionality to create space for myself, for me to do my own healing. Because, she had to go through her process and her own healing, and I had to, once I had all these realizations, I had to go through my own healing. And what that looked like for me is I had to actually remove myself from the situation a little bit. I took a 3-week trip and went to Florida and went and visited business partners, and I created that space for myself to start doing some reading, get some coaching, do some work, and do a deep dive stuff, and read some books that made a significant impact in my life. And in that process, ironically, now we're coming to the crux of the story here, is like, I was told by a coach that I needed to go do ayahuasca. And I was like, no, I don't think so. Like, I'm good. Like, I don't feel like I need to do ayahuasca. Like, it's really, I feel good about my life. My business is thriving. I'm successful. Hannah's just gone a little off the rocker, right? Like, that was just the story I'm telling myself. Hannah's gone a little off her rocker, and I'm telling my coach Stacy this. I'm like, dude, Hannah's just gone a little off her rocker. I don't really need to go to ayahuasca. She's talked about doing ayahuasca a lot, though, so maybe she needs to do it. And I was like,
all Hannah's
and I literally, like, totally. And so at this point in time, I was literally in this place where I was like, I think she needs to do it. So maybe I'll look into that. And so, mind you, Hannah and I really hadn't talked at this point in time for a couple weeks, because I needed to create space, and I wanted to give her space. Because when I left, I said, listen, I need this for me. You're going to do what you're going to do. You need to go through your process of finding yourself and like genuinely coming to a place of your own healing and whatever, without me being all up in your shit every day. Like, that's really what it came down to. Because it did started getting a little combustive at home when she's dealing with all the emotional swings of feeling what she was feeling and still wanting to stay. And that was hard for me to be around constantly. And so I just needed to remove myself for a period of time so we could each have our own space. And that's what we did. So I called her after this call with my coach and, mentioned to her that I was looking to go do ayahuasca. And I that's how I positioned it, even though in my mind I was like, I don't want to go do this, but my coach says to do it. So maybe if I do the research and I do all this stuff, I was like, hey, would you want to go do this? And mind you, at that point in time, we were together still, and we were committed to each other, but we were both kind of in this purgatory, I would call it, right? Where we didn't know what direction we were going to go. We didn't know what was next for our lives. And I think our hearts were both open to this place where whatever the result was going to be was okay. as painful as it might be.
Painful, scary
Scary.
AF.
Yep. It was like
But
we were
wanted
trusting.
to do what was best for each of us and
Yep.
not just blindly follow, this is the path you've been on, so this is the path you should stay on.
Right, exactly.
So we were at least open to that.
For sure.
Whatever that meant to be.
So I called her and I said, hey, do you want, like, this is what my coach just told me. And immediately she was like, I've wanted to do ayahuasca forever. And I'm like, I know. Like, it's okay.
And
Like,
I'm showing you these different, like,
Yeah.
here's my research of
Yeah.
these different places that I wanted to go, which were all very expensive
yep. And I was like,
and
listen.
kind of luxy.
Yeah, and kind of luxy. And I was like, listen, like, why don't I do some research and I'll find some places and I'll get back to you. And
So he
And
finds
so-
this like the Walmart of ayahuasca trips. He's
It was
like,
awesome.
He's like, Hannah, don't worry about it. It's in the middle of the jungle and it's a quarter of the price of what you've been researching. Not
was
even.
awesome.
It was like an eighth of the price or something.
it was
Some
yeah.
teeny tiny little thing. And I went, you know, that the shaman that you go and work with is a pretty important aspect. Like, I don't need the super clearance back at the store from Walmart shaman here that's working with our energy and our entire life is
Yeah.
in their hands. Can we please make sure that this person is vetted? And so at first I was really leery about the place that you chose. And then I did some of my own research. I went and dug up, you know, on the dark webs to see what, I don't think I know how to access the dark webs, but I feel cool saying that. The deepest research I could do that was not reviews on their website,
Right.
you know, it was like,
Yeah.
you know, Reddits and the Quoras and stuff like that.
Yeah.
To find out what people were saying about the place and the shaman and the lineage that the shaman came from, and all of that is really super important. And I ended up feeling safe about the spiritual container of what this place was offering us. So because of the financial prudence from you and wanting to get your wife fixed,
Yeah.
that was your
That was
goal.
it. That was the, I mean, really, when we signed up for ayahuasca, it was literally like, I was like, I'll do it. Like, I really never felt a calling to it, but I had a coach tell me I should do it. And I said, Hannah wants to do it. And if it could fix her, I'll go along with it. That was kind of that was my mindset. I'm being straight. I'm being
perfect
straight.
meme. I want that
I mean,
as a 60-second
but
clip.
it's-
If it could fix my wife, I said
I'm in.
okay.
Yeah, that was it. I'm being totally straight. And so we ended up, I remember then we needed to go for 10 days. It was a 10-day trip because the trip's there on the way back.
This
and
was
then
to Colombia. We
to
went into
Colombia.
the Amazon jungle
Yep.
of Colombia.
And so with that, we, I think it's important. We didn't want to tell the family that our relationship was kind of blowing up, so to speak, at the time. But we also needed to come up with a way to get childcare because we got 3 kids. And so I remember going to her parents and being like, hey, listen, I remember like Hannah and I are having some challenges. I don't want to go into detail.
And you really protected
yep,
my...
totally. Yep.
You
totally.
really protected me.
I
in
just
that
said
at the
we're
time.
having challenges and we need to go to a couples retreat. That's what I said to them. I said we need to go to a couples retreat. If I said we were going to ayahuasca to fix our marriage, they would have been like, what? They would have never been able to take that, I don't think. But
No.
I said we were going down to a couples retreat, and it would mean a lot to me to us if they would help watch the kids for that 10-day period. They said yes. It was amazing.
Anything to keep Hannah from going off the rails.
Yeah, pretty much is what it came
Pretty
down
much,
to. Yeah.
yeah.
And so I said, this is what needs to happen.
Which kind of really sucks because I had been really awesome for 14 years.
Yep.
But everybody remembered the time in 2009 when Hannah went off the rails.
That's true.
For what it's worth.
Yep.
I'm just...
Yep, fair enough. And so we went down, and I remember going down, and when we went, we both had this agreement with each other. It's like we were going together, but we didn't know if we were leaving together, if you will, right? It was one of those situations where it was just kind of wide open. And I will say this, is that I remember there were certain situations that were testing in the week, but a lot of those situations came from just insecurities and self-limiting beliefs and doubts and whatever. But this is, I think, the biggest thing out of it. And for me was we went down and I expected her to have this deep revelation and to find this deep, compassionate love and all this stuff for me. And she was just like, I thought ayahuasca was supposed to do something, right? And she found herself having a really challenging time connecting with the medicine. And ayahuasca basically like turned my life inside out. I went in thinking it was going to be about fixing her, and the opposite happened. It turned my life upside down, I started realizing all of the ways that I was not living in my full authenticity, that I was not being living the highest version of my life, living into my highest calling, living in a way that was the most fulfilling. And like she said earlier, we had all the things and I had all the life. And if you looked at my YouTube channel and my business and you talked to all the people that were in my life, it was like we'd arrived and we were there and we had all this stuff. And it was like the American dream. And the more we had it, the more I was like, and I didn't want it. And ayahuasca just held a really interesting mirror up for me to see that. And by the end of the week, I was literally a different person. And I still didn't know exactly who the new person I was yet, but I knew I wasn't that same old person, and I knew some changes needed to be made. And you know, anybody who's done ayahuasca before, you kind of know what that moment in time is, and that's why I think it's really important to kind of state that the ayahuasca journeys themselves are a part of it for sure, and they can have the big awakenings and the big ahas, and you get those experiences in the journey. But it's the work you do after the fact that is the big difference maker in life. It's the integration work after the fact. And so we left, and she had one connection with the medicine that I don't even think it's worth getting deep into. But it wasn't a positive experience, and it wasn't a deep experience. It was more confusing than anything, I would say. And it had nothing to do with our relationship. So we left the first week with me being like, I'm a different person, and her being like, well, this sucks. Right? Is that fair? Right? Yeah. And so then we leave and we go back to the US, and she was just like, As a couple we left.
At least we left as a couple.
And we took 2 days in Colombia after, just to kind of get a hotel room and integrate a little bit and have conversations before going back into real life. And we did that. And when we got back, we slowly started to reconnect. And it was interesting because it wasn't so much about what she needed to do. It was about me changing. And it wasn't about me changing. But I think the dynamic of me changing helped to a great extent.
Don't you love a good plot twist?
Right? And
she's not the complete villain all the time.
And so then after a couple weeks of living into this kind of new life where we were refining ourselves, she just comes to me one night and she's like, you know what? I didn't really connect with medicine the way that I wanted to. I would love to go back. And I said, okay, let's go. And so like literally 2-3 weeks later, which was only 6 weeks after the first trip, we went back. And we got another sitter, which was an even more fun conversation to have to ask for, but we made it work. And we went back down. And in that process, she had a little bit of a better connection. But once again, for me, I like went deeper and deeper, and it really shifted my business mindset. And it was like another level, because the first week that I was there, it was all about, I was in such crisis mode and I didn't realize it. I had all these abandonment issues. I had all these issues of people not being there for me when I'm there for them. And self-limiting beliefs, doubt, pains, traumas, like just heavy, hard stuff. That my first 3 journeys with ayahuasca were the 3 hardest days of my life that I don't have time to get into in this episode.
It was like a lifetime of trauma unpacked.
It was really challenging.
Yes.
And so for me, it actually, the second time we went, it ended up being this beautiful experience for me, because I felt so much lighter and we were in such a better space. And I was like, and don't get me wrong, we were still working through stuff, but I was in that process able to go in with a completely different subconscious state of being. And I realized I was able to go way deeper into my business and way deeper into, it just happened about me living my fully authentic life. And that's what inspired this tattoo and what is going to be the whole sleeve that's going to be getting completed here. And this is what made me realize that the cul-de-sac house on the golf course with all the toys in the neighborhood and just the kids and all the things that she said earlier, That's not what made me fulfilled. That's not what made her fulfilled. What makes us fulfilled is a life of adventure and a life of spontaneity and a life of freedom and all these things.
And a life of pouring into other people.
Right, and creation.
Not just about us.
And creation.
It's about using our experience and our giftedness
Yeah.
and our struggles and our learning and everything.
And our ability to endure.
That we have, our ability to endure, it's
Sure.
the grit that we
Yeah,
have,
yeah.
and our dedication to just fucking growing through it,
Yeah.
to be able to inspire and to help and to pour into other people.
Yeah.
And we weren't doing that. It was all
Right.
about us, more at
Yeah.
that moment in time without meaning to.
Without even realizing it.
realizing it. It was
Right.
just this surface level life.
Right. So I remember I had this one journey that basically was like flip. It was the big, honestly, probably the biggest pivot point, tipping point in our life, my life, which ends up being our life, where it was like, you're getting out of that house, you're selling your stuff, you're going to move to the jungle and you're going to do all these things. And what's fascinating is from that point in time to when we bought Zaria Eco Hotel and Retreat Center, it was about 9 months. 9 months. And so then we uprooted our entire family and moved to the Dominican Republic. And it's one of the things that's inspired this new way of being for us. And that is just, just living our fully authentic life, realizing that you don't have to know how all things are going to unfold, how all things are going to play out, that the journey is really what it's all about. And I know that's like a cool, fun catchphrase for enjoy the journey, it's not the destination, all that stuff. But I would say that we started to embody that and started to really, really resonate with the fact that we just needed to at least dedicate a season of our life of a several year window where we said, okay, this is really what we're committing to, and we've done it. And I think as we've had the courage to be bold and step into that against everybody in our life pretty much that loves us and cares about us, against their
Many people.
opinion, most people's opinions. It's really, I think, worked wonderfully, and we've become closer, we've come more connected. I will say this, it's in that we've also had new challenges, new struggles.
It's been one of the hardest seasons, for sure.
It's been one of the hardest.
But also the most stretching, the most growing, the most impactful season that we've had. And what a cool opportunity now to share with our kids as well. What a lifestyle pursuing freedom and pursuing meaning and pursuing contribution and just living life on your own terms.
Totally.
And trying to find a more authentic version of ourselves, like what that looks like.
Yeah.
And we've exemplified that to them instead of just saying to them, like, you don't have to play the sports that we played. You don't have to do for a job what we do for work. We want you to be you. We want you to find you and find who you were uniquely created as, whether you say God made you to be when you came into this world, or you believe that your soul as a little spark from the universe came in and chose to be in this world, to have an experience, to live a life. Either way you want to define that, your soul arrived with a purpose. Your soul arrived wanting to experience life in its most unencumbered, adventuresome, experiential way. And now we don't have to say that to our kids anymore because we're actually living it.
Yeah, I think there's,
Which is
there's
cool.
Totally, 100%. And I think there's a phrase that we learned while we were going through the ayahuasca process where it's couples that drink together grow together. And for us, we didn't know what that meant going into it. And it was really hard when we first started the journey. And I'm not saying if you're in a situation like this, for instance, where you feel kind of disconnected from your spouse or your partner, you feel like you're unfulfilled, even if you love the person you're with, and you're feeling like there's more. I can't speak for you, but I can speak for us and say that another phrase is the only way out is through, right? And for us, it was one of those things where we didn't go into this journey to save our marriage. The consequence and result, positively, was that it did save our marriage, I believe. And I can with 99.9% confidence say that we would not be here right now having this conversation and living our life had it not been for our decision to go down and drink ayahuasca, not just once, but twice, 8 ceremonies in a month and a half. Okay. And so
it saved and improved.
Right. So
our
it saved
marriage.
at first, and then the work that we were able to do after the fact improved it. And then, of course, then what happens is it pushed us into an environment of a new season of growth. And I think that was the awakening, right? We went from crisis. Ayahuasca turned a crisis into an awakening, and it gave us the tools and the insight and the feelings and the experiences. Because when you go through your journeys and you go through these ayahuasca journeys, you have a feeling and an experience in a way that you can't replicate. And it doesn't...
You can hardly describe.
You can hardly describe it. And then you work with each other after the fact. You work with yourself, and then you work with each other after the fact to kind of integrate that into life and to make sense of it all, quite frankly. And that's the challenge, because like most of these journeys are so metaphorical, and it's really sometimes easy to get twisted up in what those journeys are. And so it's important that if you are going to do this, and I encourage everybody to do it if you feel ready and called to it, that make sure you're as grounded as possible going into it. Make sure you have a good support team. Make sure you have a good coach, integration people you trust that know you intimately, that can help hold you accountable, help you remain grounded when you might want to just kind of like light your world on fire because of all these things happening. Allow it to be a reflection of your biggest internal desires and drivers, because one of the other things that I love is ayahuasca, psilocybin, these plant medicines. They never put anything into you. They always pull what's out of you, right? They pull it out of you. So if you're experiencing anything in the journey, and I remember sitting down with our shaman that we're working with now on the last time we went down this past November, and I was having a lot of doubts even then, because me and ayahuasca have this really crazy relationship where it likes to beat me up.
And you like to resist.
I like to resist, exactly. And so
don't forget that part.
And so
it's not her fault.
Right, exactly. And so I was having this process where I was having a lot of self-doubts, and it felt like bigger than me, and it kind of felt like it was coming from a place of ego on my journey, and I had this guilt around it. And the shaman was just reflecting to me that if this happened on your journey, the medicine doesn't lie. That is your truth. If it came out, you have to work through it and figure out how does that integrate into your life, but that is your truth. And so I think I can say that now, 27 months after our first experience, the episode of 2023, January 2023, I can say that our life is 100x better in all the ways. We are closer, more connected, more in alignment. And I would say that not just because of doing that ayahuasca journey once and twice, and now a third and fourth time, and when I say third and fourth, I mean full week-long kind of immersions, but utilizing different plant medicines as tools to build ourselves, to find our deeper selves, to use it to connect deeper with each other, and just having it as a tool to go internally and to heal so we can grow. And then ultimately we want to live a life of example, and we want to thrive, and we want to help our kids thrive, and we want to help others thrive. And I truly can say that I don't think that we would be able to be the best versions of ourselves had we not used it. And now I want to caveat that with everybody that is watching, the people that are watching that would be like, oh, you don't need plant medicines. You can reach that place on your own. You can just pray to God and do all this stuff, and you can have breakthroughs. And guess what?
And meditate.
Yes, all that. Yes, breath work, meditation. Without
Fair.
the plant medicines. Fair, cool, yes. I don't disagree with that, okay? All and more, right? We got a buddy. It's not either or, it's that and more, right? And it's this and more. And I will say for me, I have such a deep reverence, respect, and honor for plant medicines and psychedelics in general when utilized the right way, to accelerate the journey, accelerate the process. But my real caution to everybody before going to this, whether it's for yourself individually, whether it's for you and your partner, your spouse, make sure you do the work ahead of time. Make sure you have the real hard conversations. And that's the thing that we did really deeply, is we were able to get ourselves to the place, I think individually and as a couple, where we were able to have the hard conversations without raising our voice, without calling each other names, without having animosity and anger.
Blaming, judging, shaming.
Right.
And it wasn't always by ourselves either.
Right.
Is I would encourage people to make sure that if you're in a situation like we were in and you're going to approach this as a couple, I always encourage people, we always encourage people, have a third party involved. We had multiple mediators, mediator roles, if you will, during this entire phase, this entire growth opportunity that we were in.
Yep.
Different healers, different coaches, different therapists, different people who assisted him, who assisted me.
Yep.
He involved himself in an immersive men's program to build up your masculine and to figure out the polarity situation and to learn more about that.
Yep.
And I moved into a space of energy healing to figure out how did I revert so loudly and so intensely after 14 years of emotional and physical sobriety, sexual sobriety. And the traumas that it brought up, like why am I acting, why, to get deeper, to unpeel the onion, to get to the inside of it. Like we're never ones that are just going to take a medicine to make us feel better. You know, that's what the pharmaceutical industry is here to teach us, is that if you pop a pill, you'll feel better. What the naturopathic industry is here to teach us, as opposed to that allopathic model, is to get to the root of the problem, not to just medicate away the symptoms, and find the root of it. So when this happened, when we hit this episode in 2023, we both wanted to get to the root of it. So you went at it with coaching and a course, and you were reading voraciously, 6 hours a day, right? When you were at least you were meditating and praying and talking to a coach, and you did a full-on immersion in this men's program.
Hardcore.
When it happened. I chose, I have a good friend who is a world-class myofascial release specialist, and the understanding behind that methodology is that the issues live in our tissues. And so in the fascia is the covering on our muscles and our tendons and our ligaments. And that fascia has memories, stores memories of what happens in our lives. And so everything is recorded. Our body records everything since before we were even born. And a myofascial release specialist is able to break apart that fascia and to release some of those little micro traumas or life experiences that our body holds on to. And when we do that, we free ourselves from them and allow them to move outside of us. I worked with a shaman who's an incredible healer, massage therapist. We did soul retrieval work and shamanic healing therapy. I worked with a cranial sacral, a Reiki. I worked with a trusted medium, a psychic healer and medium who follows divine guidance. She is a God-based woman who covers the whole thing in prayer and divinity and makes sure that we're only bringing in, because I know some of you are going to be like, what? Be careful. And I appreciate your warnings, but I'm aware, be careful. And so I am careful. And this woman is very, very careful to bring in God, Jesus, the divine, my spirit guides, my angels, my personal guardian angels. We did a lot of work about unhooking people and doing lots of spiritual and energetic healing on me. So I was working a lot of different modalities, and at the same time that Chris was. So it's not like what we're saying all of this to also say, have other people who are helping you with your care and do other modalities also that are outside of just working with ayahuasca. Integration specialists before you come in, and integration specialists with other people, and multiple modalities on the way out is if you want the level of shifting and changing and growth that you and I experienced. It wasn't just from like, let's book a trip and hang out with a shaman for 10 days and watch our lives change.
And we've seen people go down that path and just go down and think that ayahuasca is going to shift who they are, and it will, but it can also blow your life up in the process.
We've seen it go both directions.
We've seen it go both
now that we've been involved in working with the multiple plant medicines in multiple locations over now these last couple of
2.5
years, 2.5 years, we have seen it go both directions. So
Yeah.
this is not a carte blanche invitation for everyone to go work
Right.
with ayahuasca. Make sure that obviously your mental health is steady enough, that your physical health is steady enough in order to undertake this rigorous process.
Yeah.
And it's not for everyone, and it's not for everyone all the time. There's certain
Right.
times in your life. So
You may feel called to it, you may not. Maybe now is not the right season. But the other thing I'll
Yeah.
say to this is that if you're in a situation like us, I think it's not wise to go down thinking the medicine is going to fix you, or that you're going. You can't go down thinking that you're going to fix the marriage. You got to fix yourselves.
and you can't go
You
down
gotta
thinking that
heal
the medicine will
yourself.
heal your partner.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
Really?
Who would do a thing like that? Who would do a thing
Who would
like that? What is
imagine that?
Seriously, don't be me, okay? Do as I say, not as I did. So, you know, it's I'm just trying to help you learn from my challenges, right? And so,
And vice versa. I mean,
Totally.
a ditto, not vice
Yeah.
versa, ditto. That's really the only reason that we're doing this, you guys. Like that we
Right.
share our stories.
yeah,
It's not for our own personal gain or benefit, although we would gain
Yeah.
by having the right people come and join us. Now that we love the work with the medicine, we've seen what
All right.
it can do for people. And it is a huge blessing, and it is a huge gift, and the honor that we get to experience by ushering other people through a safe and vetted experience with amazing shamans in a good logistical program to be able to accomplish their desire to work with a medicine
Totally.
has been some of the most gratifying
it's been
aspects of our lives.
amazing. And so we say all this because one of the things that we've been called to now since launching the Thrive Hive show and putting ourselves out there and sharing our story on a more open public level, and really wanting to pour into other people's lives in this way, because of the fact that this medicine has had such a deep impact on our lives, both individually and then as a couple. We are now leading ayahuasca immersions down into the Peruvian jungle. We've got an amazing location with an amazing 8th generation Shipibo shaman that we are working directly with. We are not facilitating. We bring the group down and help guide, and we're there to support for sure, but they've got a whole team of support down there as well. And it's a place that we've gone through, vetted, had some of the deepest medicine work that we've done. And it's just an amazing experience. So if you are feeling called to it, I would say that June 7th through 15, we're going to be down there. And I would encourage everybody to go to thrivehiveshow.com/Peru.
Well done.
thrivehiveshow.com/Peru.
Peru.
And
apply.
go on there and apply. Just apply to see if you want to have a conversation with us, to see if it might be a good fit for you and your spouse. We have people who are coming down with business partners. We are limited to 14 people that can come. We want to keep it intimate, small, ish, right? In the way that the energy in the container is held.
We only have
in the
about
right
10
way.
spots left.
We have about
at
10
this
spots
moment
left,
of
and
filming.
so as of this very moment in time. But we've got a huge pipeline of people that said they're interested and they're kind of in the waiting mix. But I would really encourage you to go check it out. And if you have any questions, even if you're just kind of contemplating, I would say just reach out to us. Go to that site and check it out, because it's magical work, it's deep work, but don't go until you're ready to do the work. I think that's the biggest thing.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
It's not easy physically. There is purging, top and bottom purging sometimes. Not everybody, not every time, but
I
there
think
is
it's harder
purging.
after the fact than it is in the journey. As hard as the journeys are for me, I think it's harder after
We
the
have the
fact.
hardest journeys of all
Yeah.
time, I think. And for some people, they're easier. Some people, they're harder. Different. You never know what you're going to get. But what we can say is that, there's that expression that most things that are easy aren't worth it, and most things that are worth it aren't easy. And that certainly applies to all of our work with plant medicine, or what I call the sacred medicines, which are any psychedelics that are used in a sacred manner to stretch ourselves into the best versions of ourselves that we can be, to connect with ourselves, with one another, with the divine. And that to me makes it sacred medicine. It's not easy, but it's worth it. So if that's something that is calling to you, then it would be our great honor to be able to have a conversation and explore that and see if we might be able to be here to kind of manage the logistics and cover you, just wrap you in a blanket of love, unconditional love, where you can be held to ugly cry and snot boogers all over your face like I do when I ugly cry, and to not wear makeup and jungle hair, don't care. Like we're gonna bathe in the river, in huts, in the Amazon. The rivers are warm, don't worry, it's not cold. And there's no animals that are gonna be dangerous, so don't worry about that either. But we're really letting our hair down to get real and to be the most authentic versions of ourselves we can be. And when we do that, it's important to be in a safe container.
Yeah.
So Chris and I are here to hold that container, to allow the healing to happen. So all people who want to join us have to do is let go and to release what has held them back and know that they are held in an unconditional love kind of a way. So if that feels like something that would be soothing to your soul and you're ready for the adventure, let's have a conversation.
Yeah, that's it. So, and if now's not the time, that's cool. Just subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. That way you are made aware when we are creating all these new videos. We're interviewing amazing people on a weekly basis, and just just all sorts of different content. We're making content with each other, as you're watching now. Hannah's going to be creating more content. I'm going to be creating more individual content for men. She's doing it for women, and we're going to do some couple stuff as well. And so we really want this platform to be about serving people and taking our experiences and the challenges and the beauty and like paying it forward. And that's really what this is all about. So
yeah, and thank you in advance for your kindness and for your gentleness around the story that I just shared.
Yeah.
It's really tricky when we share our most vulnerable moments, the things that we might not be proud of.
Mm-hmm.
And what it reminds me of is how awesome it is and how important it is to have a community where we all feel safe to let down our guard and to be vulnerable. So I'm going to say thank you in advance for your support and not your criticism, because that is the playground that we're creating here with Thrive Hive. And
I'll say to this too is everybody who would be critical to her in that environment, I'll tell you this, is I'm grateful for that experience now. And it's one of those things where if you're going to be critical about that environment, I would encourage you to go look in the mirror about hurting people hurt people. And if you're coming at her in that way, you probably have a lot of your own stuff that you need to deal with. That would be my first inclination. And then secondly, really think about what that means for yourself. And I would say that dealing with this stuff and going through these processes, I would not be here if she had not gone through that process. Like, it's amazing. I believe that God, the universe, however you want to frame it, wants more for us than we could ever want for ourselves, and it's like beyond our comprehension. And whenever these things happen, it's not what happens to us that matters, it's how we interpret what happens to us. And we chose to take this crisis and turn it into awakening, and we chose to show up as the versions of ourselves that we needed to be to grow into who we want to become, to live the life that we want to live. And that doesn't happen by accident, and it's not easy. And we're putting ourselves out there, and admittedly, Hannah's putting herself out there a bit more than I am, because she's been a little crazier than me, and that's okay. And her journey's been a little bit more intense in ways, but then in some ways mine has been more intense. And at the end of the day, none of that matters. What matters is it's our perceptions of it. And I would encourage anybody watching this to think about things that you've gone through that have been challenging, and looked at how you've reacted to it, responded to it, handled it, and grown through it, or suffered through it, or how have you responded. And I promise you, how you reacted and how you handled it is been the thing that has dictated where you are right now. And for me, I've gone from a place of pain, crisis, forgiveness, healing, growing, now thriving. And in the thriving, you find this place of gratitude for the initial pain, because you realize that, wow, I'm thriving. And look, we live this crazy, awesome life.
Yes, we do.
And I know that this life would not be happening right now the way that we are experiencing it had she not almost blown it all up.
Again.
Right? And so
By accident.
Right.
By accident, people.
And so it's just it's
Yes.
this. And so people sometimes still come to me and are like, how have you forgiven her? I'm like, homie, it's way beyond forgiveness at this point in time. I now look at it and I find gratitude. And that's how we're able to speak this. That's how I'm able to hear the story about it over and over again, for the most part, without it bothering me at all. I'm not going to say I'm inhuman and like it doesn't bother me from time to time. There are elements of hearing it that can be a little triggering, and that's okay. That's just natural. At the core, I am nothing but grateful, for the whole experience. And I think that's key. And so that's why I think I would encourage you to subscribe and watch and be part of this community. If you feel like you could utilize that, and if you feel like our stories would help you grow into that, and the people that we're going to interview and our thoughts and the things we're going to pull out of other people who are thought leaders and just doing amazing things in the world that we love and respect and have learned from, that to me is a big part of the story and why we're doing what we're doing, and hoping that it's adding value to you. Because if this isn't adding value to other people's lives, it's a waste of our time. That's quite frankly is it. And so we really are on a mission. So if you think you know somebody that would benefit from this story, if you have a couple that's having a hard time, if you have a girlfriend or a guy friend who are making comments about their marriage to you kind of in secrecy or in confidentiality, in confidential nature, just share this with them and let them watch it and let them feel into it and see maybe it'll resonate and stir something in them to actually move through that pain and step into that next phase of life and have a midlife awakening, because I'm tired of the midlife crisis.
Right, and that's where it gets exciting. Is like, let's start talking about this shit, you guys.
Yeah.
Let's stop pretending behind closed doors that in these perfect little suburban neighborhoods that everything is happy, and then all of a sudden a family blows up and the divorce happens, and everyone looks around and they're like, but we did barbecues at their house every Sunday and they seemed fine, right?
Yep.
And then families are torn apart.
Yep.
And that's because people aren't having these hard conversations, and they're unwilling to check their egos at the door and to reveal what's happening to other people. So I'm not saying go tell your neighbors necessarily what's going on, but let us be your neighbors. Like, we're inviting ourselves into your home through your computer to be the kind of neighbors that, instead of just shooting the shit about the sports scores and bragging about how the kids are doing in their sports and like talking about what the preacher said on Sunday or what the drama that's happening at work, we are the neighbors who are like, yo, tell us what's really going on. How's your love life? How's your marriage? How's your communication? How are your kids really? Like, let's do the real temperature checks on how life is going. Are you feeling satisfied? Are you feeling like you're living your greatest version, or are you feeling stuck? Like, what are the things that you're hiding behind the door in your bedroom that you keep so tightly locked that you won't even tell your best friend? We want to be those kind of neighbors to you, because there's nothing that is hiding in your closet, y'all, that we haven't experienced. Like, bring us the alcohol, the pornography, the infidelity, the drug addiction, the person addiction, the gambling problems, the food addiction, the losing of the businesses. We've used to work with executives, high-level, like C-suite executives who were making $500K a year and more, and they would lose their jobs, and they wouldn't tell their spouse.
For months, 6 months. 6 months.
And we were in this elite job coaching company that we both had the cool opportunity to work in for a while and do these conversations with these executives that couldn't tell their spouses. Like, that is a skeleton that is hiding in a closet, right? That they're afraid to tell people. And Chris and I want to share with you, there's nothing we haven't seen that would be shocking to us. I've been in 12-step recovery for a minute now, and there ain't nothing that you could say that you are doing or that you have done that you want to stop and you are unable to that I haven't heard. And he's lived it vicariously through me. People come to him and say, my spouse is struggling with X, Y, and Z. How do I support them? How do I not hate them? How do I love them but not allow myself to be a doormat and get abused by them? Like, all of the things. And so we've been coaching people for years just through our own life experience, and we've just never put it out there publicly. in full, not to the level that this video is. That's for sure.
Here we go.
Here we go. So I don't know that I'm even going to want to post this, quite frankly, because it's really putting me out there. But if it will serve, then it is worth it. And we made the commitment when our relationship was first saved in 2009, and we came back together after that 8-month separation.
Yep.
And I was doing 3 recovery programs all at the same time for 8 months solid. Y'all, I'm talking about a 1-hour phone call with my sponsor first thing in the morning, 3 meetings a day at least, 7 days a week for 8 months, and then journaling and writing in between. I was catching rides to meetings because I didn't have a car. I was riding the bus. And that was my life. That was my full-time reinvention for 8 months. And at the end of it, when we did finally get back together, we had a new set of rules that we got to establish for our relationship, which we'll do in future videos. But we also said that recovery is first and has to be first in our relationship, and that we would allow our lives to be an open book when it would serve other people.
Yep.
And we would reach out a hand to those that are coming behind us and say, we've been there, we've made it through, just a little in front of you, let us help you. And so that is the commitment we made 15 years ago when I got sober and we got a second chance. And we are just living into that, hoping that it serves you. And if it doesn't, and there's no comments and we don't get good feedback that it helps people, then fuck it. I got a great life, man.
We'll keep it to ourselves.
We'll keep it to ourselves. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. We love you. But if it does mean something to you, we would love to hear that. And we would love to have you join our hive.
Totally.
So that's all.
So,
With so
all
much
right, guys.
love. So much love. Thank you for enduring. If you have endured this entire conversation, I would say you are one of the tribe. All right? So
Exactly.
welcome in, subscribe, do the things, share the videos, and we look forward to the next time. And drop in the comments what you'd like to hear from us, too.
Yeah. If there was something that was specifically impactful or that touched home for you in this video, please let us know in the comment below, because that might help us each decide what we're doing for individual content, content together moving forward, guests that we're going to bring on, people we're going to interview, different things to pull out of other people in situations. So that's it.
Totally. Tell us what you loved and tell us what you'd like to hear more of. And tag people who need this. All right?
Exactly.
Lots of
All right.
homework. All right. Love you.
See you guys.